What's up guys, and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. Today's video is all about making some kind of cinematic synthwave or space wave on an entirely hardware setup, bringing together the kind of budget trinity when it comes to synthesizers. I've got two dedicated synthesizers here and the Novation Circuit Tracks. I've got the Korg Minilogue. This is a recent addition to my permanent setup. I actually made a video with this thing a couple of years ago. I had it on loan from a friend and I was finally able to actually buy it from him. So that's super exciting to have this fully analog polyphonic synthesizer as part of my collection. Going to be taking full advantage of that. And then I've got the incredibly versatile Arturia MicroFreak, which you can't see on screen, digital synthesizer with an analog filter, which once again, I will be taking full advantage of in the session. And then as the brains, the sequencer, and the mixer of this entire setup, the Novation Circuit Tracks, and of course I'll also be using its internal synth engines and its internal drum machine. And that's the entire setup. If you want to see how I sync all this stuff up, you should check out a video that I'll link at the end of this video. I did an in-depth tutorial on all things Novation Circuit Tracks, including sequencing external gear. So without any further introduction, let's just jump into the actual music making. A lot going on here, so let's dive into it. First of all, I want to note that I started this jam just on the circuit by itself, and I just came up with 4 separate parts that I thought would work well together, and then copied stuff over into the MIDI tracks. This is workflow I'll probably be using quite a bit more because it's the most convenient, and it still allows me to get the expandability out of this, but I can kind of set this up once I know I have an idea I like. Let's start off with the main bit here, which is MIDI 1 controlling the Minilogue. So let me get rid of the effects for a second. That's the dry patch. This patch is fairly simple. Both oscillators are running. They're both on saw. I've got the filter engaged. I've got the resonance turned up ever so slightly. And then I've got the filter envelope set to do a little bit of movement so it creates kind of a wub. Like it starts off kind of closed and then opens up a bit. And the major thing that you're probably noticing in this patch is the pitch warble. So I've got the LFO set to a triangle wave, and then I've got that sent to pitch, just doing a slow little pitch warble. It's kind of simulating a tape effect of sorts. It's really leaning into the analog characteristics of this and like jumping out at you saying, hey, look at me, I'm an analog synth. And I've also got the release turned up ever so slightly. Like these are notes that are held down. But it rings out just a little bit extra so the notes bleed into each other a bit, and then I've brought that effect way out by adding effects. Reverb. And a bit of ping-pong delay. And it still sounds super nice with the filter lifted quite a bit. That gives me a lot to work with when arranging later on. So let me jump back into the project. This is our main bass. So real quick, you'll notice that the playhead is moving at half speed. This is because I've gone to pattern settings and set the pattern to move at half speed. That lets me have these really long sustained notes without any like re-triggering or anything like that. And that all just lives in the space of 4 clips, which is nice. It's much more convenient to work with, especially when you've just got long sustained notes. So this patch is a self-made patch. It's using the bass engine on the MicroFreak, and the main feature of it is not only the bass engine, but the heavily cranked resonance. And so this is a high cut filter or a low pass filter just moving downwards like that. You can hear the frequency of the filter cutoff moving downwards because of that resonance, and that resonance going downwards, creating that kind of vowel-y effect. It's definitely quite exaggerated, and that's quite intentional. I wanted to really bring out that effect. So here are these two parts together. That's deep. And then here are the built-in synth parts. I should mention all the built-in synth and drum stuff is from the Big City Great Decay pack DeLorean Dream. It's been modified and updated to work for the circuit tracks now, which is lovely. And it's got a bunch of new patches, which is also super nice. So I've gotten a ton of mileage out of this pack on the original circuit, so it's great to have it here. Nice little brass element. Ton of reverb and delay sent to this as well, and that's kind of floating on top of the entire mix. And then here's this ARP. You'll notice that's living ever so slightly more in your left ear. I've got that panned to the left a little bit, and then I've got this hi-hat panned to the right a little bit. Trying to create some separation. And this also has a massive amount of delay on it, which ping-pongs. It's very much like this kind of space sound. Next up, let's jump into the drums. These are samples from the pack. So your kind of standard kick. And then this snare has had some modifications done to it. First of all, I have pitched it down a bit, give it some more girth. And then to compensate for the amount of low end that introduced, I've cut a bunch of it using this knob here. And then I've got a subtle amount of distortion, give it a little more grit, and then there's a ton of reverb on this as well. And then this element right here has toms on it, contained in one pattern at the very end of 8 bars, and then there's a little click that happens just once, just a little subtle amount of percussion. I'm not trying to go too over the top with this. I just want to have a fill that goes every 8 bars to really hammer it home that the song is moving forward. And then as far as sidechain goes, I've got everything sent to the sidechain to varying degrees. Not a whole lot, but especially the bass needs to get sidechain to the kick. You hear that little pumping. I could probably take that further, really. That's potentially a bit much, so I'll back that off for the moment. So let's talk about arrangement, because I definitely want to build this up into a full track. So I would start it with arguably the main synth, the Minilogue. Keep it filtered way down at the very beginning. Slowly lift that over time, and then probably introduce the hi-hat and the ARP next. This guy would get filtered down as well. Use the filter frequency, not the envelope. Start to lift that over time. We've lived in this space for a little while, bring in the bass. I'm debating whether or not I would bring in the bass and the lead at the same time. I just might. It kind of depends on how it feels when it's extended out. And then from there, I would bring in the drums. I'd probably do a session switch. These are virtually identical, so what I would probably do is have one where everything's muted except for MIDI 1, and then I would switch over to this when I want everything to kick in at once, and I'd probably do some kind of filter sweep with that. Oh, and then the other thing I should do while thinking ahead... Nope, envelope. Frequency is what I want. Turn this down. That ought to work. Mute these. The synth is already filtered down here, and then it's filtered back up. And then, once again, in the interest of thinking ahead, I'm going to mute synth 2 so that the drums kick in, but the lead has not kicked in yet. So that's going to look like this. That's how I would flesh that out into a full track. I haven't even gotten into MIDI CCs. I didn't really feel the need to. Like, this didn't really change at all. And the only thing I changed on here is the filter cutoff. And yeah, I think that turned out cool. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more about how all of this stuff works, how to use the tracks, and how to set it up with external gear, you can click or tap up over here. And if you'd like to see me make more music from scratch, including more synthwave and other kind of space beats, you can click or tap down over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.